Welcome to the Mills Knows Bills podcast. My name is Mills Bender. I'm the founder and CEO of Mills Knows Bills, where we help you, variable income earners, master your money in 90 days. The point of this podcast is to help you make the most of your fluctuating income so you can stop living paycheck to paycheck, pay off your debt twice as fast, and get on track toward reaching both your personal and professional financial goals. Now, as I continue to grow my team here at MKB, you may have some guest hosts from time to time. However, our goal does not change. Whether we're bringing in a guest speaker, having an in-depth conversation about our personal finances, or talking about a topic that is of interest to you, our goal is to help you master your money. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Mills Knows Bills podcast, where we answer business owners' burning financial questions. I'm your host, as well as the founder and CEO of Mills Knows Bills, Mills Bender. With us today, we have a really good friend of mine, Scott, who honestly, we've run in the same circles for a while now, and he is one of my favorite people to talk to, let alone one of my favorite business owners to talk to. So it's an incredible honor to have him on the show. I know you all will love him just as much as I do. Scott, please take a moment, introduce yourself, and then we will dive into your burning financial question.
Thank you so much, Mills. You're one of my favorite business people to talk to. It's been a fun year.
It's been like a year and a half, I think, right?
Yeah, something awesome. Like that.
Yeah. So obviously, everyone knows my name. So I'm Scott.
Hello, Scott.
I own Hire VP, which is a virtual professional talent placement company. And as this business has grown, the biggest question that has really kind of been on my mind, and it seems like I get as many answers as many different people as I ask. So I think you're the best person to go to, is how much money do I need as the business is doing well? How much do I need to save in business? And how much do I need to save in personal? I've set personal goals, I've set business goals, but I have no clue. I'm just throwing a dart at the wall to see where it lands.
So I always say it's dependent upon your expenses on both the business and the personal side. So let's start with the personal. A lot of people will organize their budget based off of their mandatory expenses versus their extras. So your mandatory expenses are inclusive of things like your mandatory living and debt payments, your mortgage, your rent, your insurance, maybe your minimum debt payments. Sometimes people put a little bit extra towards their debt each month, but you want to look at the bare absolute minimum on that side and calculate the total monthly. If the monthly for you is $10,000 personal, you want to have at least $30,000 set aside. You want 3 months on the personal side. If you want more, that's great, but at minimum, you should have 3. Little side note here, it's not the question you asked, but I'm going to answer it anyway. Keep that money in a high yield savings account so it's not earning you 0% every month. If this is money that you're not expecting to touch, it should be working for you at least a little bit while still being safe and liquid. So Ally Financial, Amex has a high yield savings. Doesn't really matter which one, but you can get upwards of 4% today. Do that. Now on the business side, same thing. You want at least 3 months, but you need to look at all of your mandatory business expenses. So this includes all of your operating expenses. If you were a business that had some cost of goods sold, think of somebody who sells a product, right? The cost of goods sold, if they purchase an item and then go around and resell it, they only have that expense if they have the sale tied to it. Right? So look at your operating expenses. Those are the expenses that you have in your business, regardless if you make revenue that month or not. Calculate the total of those, multiply that by 3, and that's what you should have in a savings account, bare minimum. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, can I ask clarity on that? So in my business, I have my largest expense is payroll, obviously.
Absolutely.
Since we're kind of like that's what we do. So if there's less customers, less money coming in, there's less payroll. So would operating expenses be everything outside of payroll, or should there be a payroll buffer as well? Because I've been doing 3 to 6 months of payroll buffer included.
I would do some payroll buffer for you in the event that you have a virtual professional placed, but maybe the client who has them placed has not paid you yet. But they've already, that VP has done the work, right? So
Right.
I would include some of that. I wouldn't make it maybe your end all be all, because if that client of yours continues to not pay, you end up moving that VP somewhere else anyway to somebody who would pay. So for you, definitely 3% of your operating expenses outside of payroll. For payroll, I would say at least 1 month for everybody, but I would also separate that money out. I would have an emergency fund for all operating expenses, and then I would have the emergency fund for payroll. So that way it's very clear what that money is for. And just as we have a high yield savings on the personal side, I would encourage you to have a high yield savings on the business side as well. Two of my favorite accounts are actually QuickBooks checking. It's not savings, but they give you 5%. And you can divide the money into different envelopes while only maintaining one account. Or if you don't have QuickBooks / don't want to have QuickBooks, you can do Relay Financial, and you get to have 1% yield on money in up to 2 accounts there. So again, not my super fave, but it is an option that's better than 0%.
5% is fantastic.
Yes. Couple caveats with that. The money actually has to be divided into the envelopes, though. It can't just sit in the general checking account. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
But yeah, 5% yield is...
That's on a checking account?
It's a checking account. Okay. And so the general account for QBO, you actually get a debit card for it. And so if you have, let's just say $200,000 in this account in total, 50,000 of which has not been allocated, it's in the general account. The remaining 150 is in the envelopes. Anything in the 150 will get that 5% yield. That debit card can only access up to 50,000 of the total 200 in the account though. So if for whatever reason, you lose your debit card, somebody steals it, those envelopes do act as separate accounts because they're not associated with the usage on that debit card.
Is transferring that money back into usage easy?
Yeah, it takes 2 seconds. It's very, very easy. You can click of a button, transfer that money. The longest delay is when you transfer money into or out of the QuickBooks account in general, because it's a separate financial institution, just as it would take me a few days to go from Chase Bank to Bank of America if I'm not doing Zelle.
Wonderful.
What else you got for me? Anything else I can clarify?
No, that was separating the payroll out in my circumstance makes a lot of sense outside of my team payroll, because that's kind of a given no matter what. So I figured team payroll is different than placement payroll.
Yes, absolutely. And I know a lot about your business, so placement payroll, I 100% get what you're saying. Tell everybody a little bit more about what you do, so that way they understand what you're saying when you talk about placement payroll and how you help other businesses scale and grow.
Yeah, so a lot of people have heard about virtual assistants, and I started my virtual assistant journey years ago with a lot of hesitation and nervousness, as most people gave me really bad horror stories. And so I had really good results, and over the years have realized that a lot of business owners are really not scaling when they think they're scaling, because when you scale, you're actually, growing 100% and your costs go up like 20, I think is the formula. And so how do you do that when you need to grow with staffing? So we provide professional level VAs, so we call them virtual professionals, and we source only from the Philippines for very specific reasons, but so that companies can have great savings on their staffing needs, but we're bringing people in with experience, so the level of experience is higher, and the speed to results are higher. And so we also provide we take care of all the dirty work, I guess you would say. So we do location services. So we find the person specific for each client. We recruit that way. We give them a choice of people. And then we do payroll, and we provide the team members for each business healthcare, as well as yearly bonus. So we kind of take care of all the back end things and just make it really smooth for business owners. Because the last thing you need to do is worry about hiring. And each of our hires takes at least 40 hours just to get from, hey, here's the person we want, to here's your presentation full of opportunities. And so if you think of saving 40 hours, it's very significant. But that's really what it takes to make sure that the vetting system is really dialed in, and that the talent coming in front of you actually can do what they say they can do and have the experience. And so we do that. It's a blast, and we're full service. So when a company wants to grow, we just keep adding to their team. When they change directions and need a different staff, we can swap. So it's kind of like a all-in-one staffing solution for many businesses. A lot of people underestimate what you can use a virtual, like, outsourced person for. And the answer is anything where you don't need boots on the ground.
Pretty much. Yeah. And you know, we talk specifically with business owners on this podcast who are looking to grow and scale and use their business as a means for financial freedom as well. And this is an excellent opportunity to get closer to that realization of financial freedom, especially if you're wanting to get to the point where you want to exit from the day-to-day, right? And, you know, I knew a lot about your business, but I didn't know it took 40 hours to find somebody. And I didn't know about the whole healthcare side either. That's really, really cool. And, you know, you and I have talked about when I'm ready to bring somebody in on a VP side, I would, of course, go to you. I've not had that need yet, but I've also sent a lot of my clients and friends to you, and they have absolutely nothing but amazing things to say. And so if somebody watching or listening to this podcast would like to learn more, what's the best way that they can reach out to you, Scott?
Yeah, well, I kind of live and breathe on Instagram and Facebook. I know it's not the typical marketing, like, here's a perfect website to go to and it's going to walk you through a funnel or a landing page. I'm definitely a relationship person. So Scott Rammage with 2 M's on Facebook is probably the quickest and easiest place. You can go to vamediamachine.com. That's kind of like our landing spot, because I have multiple, 2 businesses that are actually run by overseas staff. And so one's older, Media Machine's older, and Hire VP is newer. So that's kind of our landing page if you want to get a little more information about what we do.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Thank you for your question and taking the time. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Mills.
If you stuck around long enough to get to this part of the podcast, I just want to say thank you. We really appreciate the fact that you take the time to listen to the content in its entirety, because we do pour our hearts and soul into every single piece of content we let out. So thank you for being here. I want to let you know that if you're in a space where you're trying to level up your finances, you can always snag some free resources on our YouTube channel, Instagram. You're always welcome to email us at info@millsknowsbills.com. And if you're interested in taking part of any of our coaching programs or courses, be sure to mention our podcast to get a special discount, okay? We want to make sure that you are making the most of your financial investment. Again, I am your host, Mills Bender, founder and CEO of Mills Knows Bills. Thank you so much for listening. And just because I gotta, here's a quick little disclaimer. I want to remind you that this podcast is strictly discussion, okay? It's general, it's educational in nature. We don't provide any specific tax, investment, legal, or financial advice on this podcast with respect to any particular individual, okay? So if you're in a situation where you need specific help, please consult your own advisor regarding your unique situation.